Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Alignment Recess Live. This is the space where we press pause on performing and return to who we really are. Today's episode is one I know so many of us will feel in our bones. I am joined with the powerful and wonderful Lauren Hayes. She is a transformational speaker, founder of The Upgrade with Elle. She's a bold storyteller and a woman who knows exactly what it takes to rebuild a life from the inside out. Lauren's story is one of grit, grace, and radical self-leadership. She has built her brand during a pandemic, going through a divorce while raising children, and she did it without a playbook in a beautiful way, without investors, and without waiting for permission. So today we're talking about something that we don't talk about enough, which is the hidden cost of being convenient, how survival patterns like overfunctioning, people-pleasing keeps us stuck in small versions of ourselves, and what it really takes to break free. So if you've been feeling the pull to stop shrinking, to stop surviving, and to start leading your life with intention, this conversation is for you. Lauren, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I really am excited to be here. I'm good. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for
Good.
asking. So my first question that I like to ask guests is, how are you arriving today?
Gosh, that's such a great question. I'm arriving very much at peace. I am at a very peaceful season in my life, and I'm extremely grateful and blessed to be here. So that's the first thing I'd love to say.
What's
Your last
something your present self is teaching you right now?
silence. So I actually
Mm,
used to really be uncomfortable with stillness. I don't
yeah,
know what it
same.
was, but busyness made me feel valuable and productive and just really like I was doing what I needed to do. And so I have really prioritized stillness and silence in this season in my life. And so what that looks like for me is sometimes I'll just take a little bit longer to reflect, or I'll extend my journaling session. I've journaled for a long time. And so I'll just do things that go against what my natural tug used to be, which is like to stay productive, always have a checklist,
Right.
always be checking things off. And so now I'm just in a place where not that because I'm still getting a lot done. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like leisurely about it, but I'm just appreciating moments where I can be in silence or experience stillness for just a moment longer. And I've actually found that it's given me a lot of clarity and probably increased my productivity in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. That's something that
Yeah.
I've definitely, even though I teach it, it's still something that you have to practice, just like going to the gym. It's an
Yes.
exercise in patience with yourself. And especially in the world that we live in, we're so conditioned to do more. I don't know about you, but I definitely get side eyes, even still, sometimes if you're not doing the most or performing. I think that there's so much work that goes into showing up spiritually and
Yeah.
putting the work in to show up as the highest version of yourself, if you will. That is
Mhm.
work. That is a lot of hard work. That's why a lot of people don't do it.
And it's also work that we create our own key performance indicators for. And if you really haven't taken the time to do that, then you're only used to ever measuring yourself against performance rubrics that are given to you.
Right.
So people don't often even know how to do this type of work, and they don't know how to assess whether or not they're successful. A lot of aspects about transformation and working on yourself, those metrics are not talked about. So we don't even know that silence is a good thing, or not overperforming is actually very powerful at times. And we're just not used to measuring ourselves in that way.
Right. So you talk about the hidden cost of being convenient. I'm really excited to chat about this because I haven't really heard it talked about before. I know I talk about it with myself internally as I'm going through my own process, but I think this is a really
Yep.
important conversation. So can you break that down for us? What does that really mean to you?
Yeah. For me, being convenient meant shrinking, it meant performing strength, being low maintenance, being easy to love, easy to like, easy to keep around, easy to have as a colleague, a friend, a family member, a neighbor, anything, right? So, what ends up happening when you are convenient is you adopt people pleasing, you say yes, that, at times when it really goes against what works best for you,
Right.
you really don't have very many boundaries. And so that's ultimately what it comes down to, is not being great at boundary setting. Because I think everybody likes to be a person that is easy to be around. No one likes to look at themselves as being difficult. But at the same time, when you shy away from it so much at the cost of your own self, what you're doing is you're just people pleasing, and you are not asking yourself the right questions around what is it that you need, that you want, what works best for you.
Right.
And so you start to root your value in usefulness and ease as a person, as opposed to the fullness of who you are and what you have to offer. And that doesn't always have to be measured in how useful you are. And so I think it's difficult because it goes against what we're taught as children. I think sometimes as kids, we are taught that we need to be obedient and we need to be respectful and responsible. And all of those things are good things, but we can over index on them as we get older. And I know for me as a child, I became so used to measuring my environment and looking around and saying, okay, what does everybody need? What's going to make everyone comfortable? And then I operated in a way that was in alignment with that. And so for so long, I got used to not asking myself how I was doing, what I needed. And then people became used to that version of me. And so it was all very like subconscious. You don't do a lot of things, a lot of these types of things consciously, but
Right.
over time they do cost you things. And I didn't realize it until I became an adult, when I was asked certain questions and I appeared to be indecisive. And I'm not an indecisive person, like at my
Mm,
core, but I appeared to be indecisive because before I was answering questions about what I needed or wanted, I was trying to figure out, like, how will that land? Is it going to be in alignment with what I believe this other person needs or wants, right? And so
mm.
instead of feeling very like self-assured and listen, I'm just going to put it out there. This is what I need or want. This is my response. I was calculating before I even responded. So that was something I learned in my childhood, and I just carried it into adulthood.
Ooh, yes, I resonate with that so
Yeah.
much. And I would love to hear about your journey, or even the moment when you realized this was happening to you, when you were essentially self-abandoning yourself in this
Yeah.
for the sake of being easy to deal with or low maintenance. Was it a specific moment that hit you, or was it? I know for me, it was like a collection of moments, and it was like, wait a minute, I'm seeing a theme here.
Yeah.
When they say if you keep having the same experience, like it's
Yep.
time to start looking within, be like, what role am I playing in this? Why does
Correct.
this keep happening? And what was your journey like with that?
Yeah, I will say, like you, I don't think it was one single moment. I think I have had so many different experiences in life where I did have to start looking at common threads. And I've been in therapy for many years, and it's been such a blessing because it has held a mirror in front of me in a way that I really needed and not always known that I needed. And I'm a high functioning individual. And being that way, a lot of things can be masked, right? Like we can mask confidence or hyper independence with confidence, right? We can mask people pleasing with, hey, I'm just being kind. I'm helping people out, right? A lot
Right.
of these things I didn't realize at first. And over time, as I'm bringing certain scenarios to my therapy sessions, I'm being told, like, huh, what would you have preferred in that situation? Or what it would have been your desired outcome? Or how would you have approached that if you could have in a different way? And we started to see themes that I was people pleasing and that I was just hiding and masking what I really wanted or needed to be convenient for others. And so it wasn't one single moment, but at a point in time in my adulthood, I think it became a part of my life that I could no longer ignore. It became
Mm,
problematic. It started
mm,
to really create friction for me. And I just couldn't ignore it. I had to start addressing it. I had to start figuring out how to unlearn a lot of these behaviors. And I will just say that, like, this hasn't just shown up in like romantic relationships. It has shown up in my familial relationships. It's shown up in my relationships with colleagues and other environments that I've been in. So, like, this behavior and these sets of behaviors that kind of create this like convenient person,
Right.
it doesn't just land in one area of your life. Oftentimes it's a part of who you are and how you show up in multiple areas. So for me, it was that way for sure.
Whew, absolutely. I
Yeah.
feel that was what brought my attention to what I needed to resolve it within myself, is
Mhm.
noticing where it was showing up in the areas that meant the most to me. It's
Yeah.
easy to ignore things when maybe it's in an area where it's like, okay, for example, I've had seasons in my life where dating wasn't a priority for me. And if that was showing up, it was like, okay, it's not a big deal, or maybe it's just this person or things like that.
Mhm.
Then something that I was really focused on at the time, my business, I was noticing, okay, this is still an issue here. So
Yeah.
I think that whatever it is that we need to heal within ourselves, it shows
Mhm.
up in the areas that are most important to us to really get our attention. And if it's not the business, it's the relationship. And so
For
whatever it
sure.
is important to you, it's going to get your attention. I think it takes a lot of self-awareness, and I think a willingness to want change and to want something better and different for yourself, to not only notice it, but then take the action towards resolving it. And so I'd love to hear about what that unlearning process looked like for you. I know my journey has been very bumpy. And human design,
Oh my
my
gosh, you
profile
mean
is really about like trial and error. So I'm definitely
Ah,
I have to touch the fire to see if it's really hot or how hot it is person. But I've learned that's my learning style.
yeah,
And I need to be in the experience to feel how it is and then learn from it. But everyone's not like that. So
for
what was
sure.
your unlearning process like?
I think it's still going, right? Like
Sure.
healing or being healed, whatever. It's not a destination and it's a journey and it's linear and it just keeps going. And I like to be there for people. And I've noticed that I end up being a person that like my family will come to when they're navigating difficult moments, friends,
Mhm.
colleagues, anybody really. And I don't mind being that person. I actually quite enjoy helping other people get to better places or places of resolution or peace of mind or whatever it is. But what I noticed is that I would do that with very little boundaries, and I would feel burdensome if I needed to go to anyone else about my things. And so I would be
Mm.
extremely conservative with who I went to about stuff I was navigating, but I was always open to help other people. And so there was a huge imbalance. And I had to realize that and just be honest with myself about it. And I was always very hesitant to acknowledge this because what I never wanted to appear like, and this is the people pleaser in me, right? I don't want to appear that I'm not kind or that I don't want to help people or see people through their difficult situations because a lot of the times people coming to me about they're people I care about, right? And I
Right.
want to see them be successful in their own lives. But sometimes I was overextending myself in certain directions. And then the other piece that's really important that I had to unlearn is when I was uncomfortable with something, I wasn't disclosing it. I would sit with it and I might go through the thought process of what would Jesus do? I might go through the thought, oh, they didn't mean it, or oh, it's only happened one or two times, or oh, this couldn't possibly be how they intended for it to land with me. Like it was giving excuses, okay?
Right.
It was not willing to be honest with myself about being
Right.
uncomfortable with how other people were operating. And after a while, I realized, okay, Lauren, the common denominator in these scenarios is you. Like, you've got to unlearn these behaviors that allow you to find yourself in these imbalanced relationships or friendships, partnerships, whatever they were, because I also like to be very cautious that I'm never talking about just an intimate relationship in any of this. Like these
Right.
types of things that we go through are a part of our lives in many other places. So it really unlearning this has been a process and it's also had different applications as it shows up in different places in my life. So it's not easy and I will not say that I am fully at a place where I'm like, okay, I figured this out, but
Right.
I'm definitely a lot more comfortable addressing things that I'm not comfortable with and I'm also much more confident in expressing boundaries when I know that there's that imbalance that exists in whatever scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you feel was keeping you from this version of yourself? Was it a fear? I know for me, for example, it was a huge fear of like confrontation. Honestly, sometimes it still is. It is a
Mhm.
practice, an active practice for me to advocate for myself, I still have fear from experiences of, okay, if I speak up, is this person going to lash out, or is it going to
Yeah.
be like this whole big thing? And in my safest relationships, I've had to learn to give people the opportunity to show up for me in healthy ways. But
Yeah.
there are still instances where I do have to experience uncomfortable conversations with people that show me, okay, I can see now that this is not a healthy experience. And now I
Mhm.
know. But that causes so much stress on your body. I hate going through that process. So I was similar to you, where I would just not say anything because I didn't even want to have that experience. And I didn't know until I started doing the work that was self-abandonment, that I was choosing someone else's peace over mine. And
For
when I
sure.
saw it that way, it completely shifted my mindset.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that phrase, because I think it's people do not really consider how significant like self-abandonment is. And I actually started abandoning myself at a very young age. And for me, my deep rooted fear was not being liked.
Mm,
And it came from a place, and I think I've identified like when this happened, but I spoke about it in one of my podcast episodes. It might have been this episode. My parents moved to another geographic location when I went into high school. And I had been with the same kind of group from kindergarten all the way through like eighth grade. And then I moved the summer before ninth grade. And we moved to an area that was not very diverse at all. And I had moved from a really diverse community. And so when I walked into that school, I was met with a level of discomfort that I had never experienced. And what happened was I was a very social person, very type A, friends with everybody, playing sports, in the choir, in plays, like doing all of this stuff all through middle school and everything. And then when I got to high school, I'm like, okay, let me try to get involved in all this stuff like I used to be to see if I can find like my crew. It was so difficult. I had the worst time my freshman year of high school. I experienced a lot of racism. I experienced bullying. I experienced even the school I went to. I had a heartbreaking experience where there were derogatory things written about me in a bathroom, and I
oh
went to the school
no.
administration and it stayed there for months. It was a bad experience. And so at one point, I said, I can't keep feeling the pain. I didn't consciously say this, but I said, I know at one point I made a shift where I'm like, I cannot continue to go through the pain of trying to be liked anymore. I just need to play small and fit in. I just cannot continue to experience the rejection that I'm experiencing here. So I made a
Mm,
shift and I just started abandoning myself and my needs. And I just said, okay, I just got to figure this out. It was pure survival mode. And I know that's what it was now as I look back at it. And eventually I found my way, but that was a very transformative experience for me in my life. And then when I got to college, it was very different because I went to an HBCU that was all female, all Black. And then I'm like, okay, different environment. What do I have to do here to be successful? And I didn't even know
right.
myself by that point. By that point, I had completely dismantled any comfort level with who I was. Really didn't know. I knew that I was like a chameleon. I just needed to figure out how to survive in whatever environment I was in. Self abandonment for me, I'm sure there were flavors of it before then, but that moment when I was in high school, it changed my life. And then I've had to unlearn since then.
Let me start by saying I'm so sorry that you had that experience.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I went to a predominantly white boarding school, and even in
mhm.
my elementary school and middle school experiences, is many times the only one. And the identity shift that you go through, or even the challenge you have to hold on to your identity and how many times it is challenged, is no joke. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
deconditioning that has to happen after the space. And I didn't even notice until I was working in corporate and I was in another environment that was predominantly white. And I had experiences that kept reaffirming that I needed to be smaller. And so I didn't experience that so much in high school, but absolutely when I got into the corporate world, this is my paycheck. This is my livelihood. This is
right.
a time where I think we're coming out of this now, but a time where your success was correlated with your value.
For
And
sure.
so
Yeah.
if I need to show up at this job and do well, I had experiences where someone else could type an email in all caps. And if I even just
Don't let
affirm,
it ever come from a
yeah,
Black woman.
just one thing, just even speak up. It was, are you angry? Your tone, all tone policing, all of these things, microaggressions. And
Mhm.
I had experienced those in school, but not to the level that you did in school. And at that age is devastating, I imagine.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It definitely I actually now can more confidently label that experience as traumatic. It was traumatic for me. I really did not know how to survive in that. And the challenge really was both my biological parents are Black. My mom married my stepdad when I was very young, and he's white. I think what my family probably assumed is like, Lauren can get along anywhere, right? Like she's good at navigating any environment. She can talk to anybody, she'll be fine. So I really didn't talk to them about how brutal my experience was in high school
Mhm.
because, again, I was a people pleaser and I performed really well and I performed consistently. And I was not going to let them think that I was in an environment that I couldn't figure out. And
Right.
so I just didn't say anything. Every day going to school, I was terrible. And the people that I went to school with, they were raised in ways that I wasn't. So they were learning things, I'm sure, from their families and whatnot that they were just carrying with them. And maybe as adults, they're different people. I don't know. I don't talk to anybody from high school for this very reason. And it was very hard for me. And so when I got to college, to your point, like identity was so confusing. As a Black woman, I went there. My mom also went to Spelman. And as a Black woman, I go there and I'm like, okay, I should know for sure how to get along here because I'm meeting other Black women. But then you learn that the spectrum of experience, even within the Black community and being a Black woman, it's not a monolith, right? There's so
Right.
many different types of experiences, so many backgrounds, so many family histories, just everything. And so it wasn't a given that I was going to be able to find my community there either. And I realized that very early on. And it was just another journey of transformation once I got there and pledged a sorority and did all the things. And all of those experiences throughout my life have required me to learn certain things that I used as survival mechanisms as a young person, and
Right.
I didn't start doing this work until I became an adult, so well after college. So, I don't know, that was a whole different version of me back then,
Yeah.
and so I'm still unlearning.
It's a journey
Mhm.
for sure, a lifelong one. And as our culture shifts as well, I feel new things come into our awareness
Yep.
because there's a level of acceptance that we're allowed to have now that I don't feel we were allowed to have when we were in high school. The culture was so different. It was just so taboo, I
Yeah.
feel, to talk about certain things.
Mm.
And even for a long time, therapy was stigmatized. And so
For
now that
sure.
we're all in a space, or we're getting there, I won't say we're all, many of us are getting to a space where it's like, okay, therapy is acceptable. We realize that our societal conditioning has been very traumatic for many of us in many ways.
Yeah.
We're now seeing our culture and society shift and evolve. But that is just like anything, it's a process, and there's a lot of discomfort and loneliness that can happen on that journey. So, one of the truths that you speak about so often is how the healing journey is lonely. So,
Yeah.
how did you navigate that without giving up? Because I know the seasons of isolation that you can go through when you've made the commitment to yourself to be better. It comes with losing people. It reminds you about, this is everything I was trying to avoid, right? These are all the feelings that I didn't want to face. I didn't want to lose people. I didn't want to have the confrontation. I
Yep.
didn't want anyone to not like me. And so facing that and saying, you know what, I'm going to choose myself, even when I'm going to experience even more pain now, because it's still painful to self abandon. And now
Mhm.
there's another level of pain that you have to face. And then
Mhm.
now you're isolated. So, how did you navigate that without
Yeah.
giving up?
I think it was very difficult at first, right? Because I'm so used to like filling the space, filling the void. I didn't want to feel that, right? And so I didn't want to sit in the discomfort of making decisions that probably would give me peace, but would create discomfort in others. And so again, learning how to or unlearning like self-abandonment, you have to really be intentional. And I think I started realizing though that if I took a step back after I made a decision that I knew was in my best interest, even if it was going to make others uncomfortable, if I took a step back and just sat with it for a moment, I think I just started to feel like, okay, if I can let this decision ride for a day or a number of hours, right? And I can get past this initial discomfort, do I actually feel better than I would have if I would have made a different choice, right?
Mhm.
And I started to actually feel good about decisions that I was making. I still had to talk myself through moments that were uncomfortable because I knew that my decisions were now making others feel a little bit like, "Oh, she's changed or she's not the same." And I just started to say, "Okay, what if I just don't care? What if I
Right.
try not to care what they think? If they're not one of my kids or somebody that's gonna be severely impacted, what if I just start saying that it doesn't matter to me how other people feel about decisions that I make for myself?"
Right.
And as I became happier in making those decisions and more free to make those decisions, the loneliness just became a space that was sacred for me. Like I just appreciated honoring myself and my truth because for so long I hadn't. And I was overperforming for everyone else. So it just felt like liberating and a bit affirming to be in a place where I was like, okay, like I can just make decisions for myself. It probably feels like what, I don't know, a kid feels like when they finally reach 18 and they can do things and they have like legal right to do things.
A new level of freedom.
Yes, that's what it felt like. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this because if all else fails, I can go back to being the person that I was before, but I've enjoyed this newfound freedom for myself. And once you learn how to survive loneliness, you really can survive anything because
Yes.
once you learn how to be comfortable, not filling the void, not filling the space, then you can be a lot more discerning too, because you're making
Yes.
decisions from a place of power and not a place of desperation. And so that's another reason why pushing through that loneliness is so important. You also just learn a lot about yourself. And I think that's a journey that we all deserve to go on at some point in our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the hidden costs I think we don't even realize is we have the illusion of community when we're self abandoning and when
Oh,
we're
that's
people
a
pleasing.
whole we
It's
could
like,
open up a whole can of worms with that conversation. Because let me
yeah.
tell you, I absolutely I agree with you.
It's like you're already
Yeah.
lonely. You just have the illusion of community. You have an illusion of these people that are supposed to care and show up for you. And, when the rubber meets the road, as they say,
Mhm.
realize that you're surrounded by people who are not really there for you. That's not your true community. So you've really been lonely in a sense the entire time. So when you finally take that step into choosing yourself and saying, you know what, I'm going to leave this job, I'm going to leave this relationship, whatever it is, you realize you actually feel better because you're like, I'm familiar with this feeling actually, and this is now better because at least I'm with me, and I know
Right.
that I'm not experiencing the subconscious and the unseen energetic experience that happens when we are misaligned with people or misaligned with ourselves. Really, there's a lot of hidden energy that's happening around you that does take a toll on your mind, your body, and your spirit, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so I know there are times when you can sleep a lot when you're going through your healing process because your body is recovering. And it's almost having a ton of tabs open on your computer in the
Mhm,
background.
mhm.
Like you're
Yeah,
only looking at one tab, but actually you have 50 tabs open that are
for
draining your
sure.
battery. And so
Yep.
it's the same thing when you're in a misaligned space.
I think we have a false sense of security a lot of times in these communities because I think, again, people can fill their lives with stuff and people and be very unhappy and very
Mhm.
lonely and very misunderstood and really not even understanding themselves because they're not taking the time to really get to know themselves. This is
Right,
not everybody, obviously, but this is a lot of people.
right.
And it can be easy to curate that environment so that you never feel the loneliness. And the other piece is you will learn who is really there for you when you go through a hard season in life because people only give you like a window of time generally to mourn, grieve, kick the can down the road. Then they're ready for you to be done, like with that. Like they're like, okay, moving on. And it's, but what if I'm not done? What if I still need more time? And For the people that will stick with you through those seasons and they're still willing to ride it out with you and see you through, those are really your people. The best relationships that I have in my life are the people who we've experienced difficulty together. We've had our own difficult seasons. We may have had even conflict with one another that we've been able to resolve, which shows some maturity, right? But
Yeah.
it's really difficult because healing can feel very lonely because a lot of times people are not really interested in hanging out with you through a tough season of navigating big shifts or really dark periods or whatever it is for you. And maybe that's just their own capacity to manage, but it can be very hard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Woo. The process.
I know. It's not easy, right?
It's not easy at all. So,
Oh,
how do you balance now being available for
yeah.
others while staying deeply committed to yourself? I know you mentioned boundaries,
Mhm.
communication. I'm sure that there's still moments because I know I experienced this and many of us do. Like you said, it's a journey. There's no destination to healing. But how do you find that balance now with showing up for other people? And sometimes I'm learning this now, holding space for people, but maybe I can't show up and being okay with that. That was a big thing for me. It was like, I have to show up and be there for everything 110%, even when I was exhausted or it wasn't the best time for me. I felt like I wasn't showing up for people properly if I couldn't come to every single thing. And now I'm working through that process of, okay, actually, I can't make it, but I'm going to send you a gift or whatever it is. And
Yeah,
being
I
okay
mean,
with
listen,
that.
absolutely, but you're actually saying something very real and true because a lot of times we're all just saying yes before we even check in with ourselves. Even if you're free in your schedule, do you want to go? Like,
No.
oftentimes we don't even ask ourselves that question. I have
Mhm.
started to now, and I've made decisions like that. Hey, I'm available, but do I really want to be there? No. Do I really feel comfortable in that environment? Not really. So why would I force myself to go? The old Lauren,
Right.
we're always going, we're always saying yes, we're always doing, we're performing, we're pleasing, we're doing all that. We're not doing that anymore. Like, I'm just not doing it. So, for me, I've just stopped overextending and I've
Mhm.
started asking myself, is this support or is it self betrayal? Am I really supporting what I want for me or am I betraying myself in some way if I am making myself available for this person or this thing? And I learned that I can show up for people without abandoning myself in the process. There's no part of, and I want to be clear, this is not me like making these selfish decisions where it's like, I don't want to be there for people anymore, bitter.
Right.
It's not coming from a place of bitterness or anything like that. I love people. I want to see people be successful. I want to support other people in their lives and their endeavors with all the things that they're doing. But I also
Right.
know that like I have to love myself more. I have to make sure that I can show up as a mom because that's important to me. I have to make sure I can show up for myself because that's important to me. Like those are the first two things that I have to ask myself. Am I if I say yes to this, am I still able to show up for myself? Am I still able to show up as a mom? Like those are the things that matter to me most at first. And then
Right.
everything else just comes after that. But I think you also have to remember that being available for others, it will ebb and flow throughout your life, right? Sometimes you'll have seasons where you have a lot of capacity, emotional capacity, time for others, and then there will be other seasons when you just don't have as much to give. And the people that really love you and want to be in your life, they will understand that ebb and flow. You'll have that same grace for them.
Right.
And if they are truly concerned with how you're operating or how the relationship is going, or they'll take the time to have a conversation with you. If people become just cold or distant, you have to accept that. And you
Yes.
have to know that just means that they're not placing the same value on the friendship or relationship as you are. And so, if that's the case, like you have to take it at face value. It can hurt, but that's one of the shifts I've had to make is I've had to just say to myself, listen, nobody is yours to keep. Accept relationships for what they are and whatever season they're supposed to be in your life for however long, whatever that looks like. You have to release people, you have to let them go. And if you live your life with an open hand in that way instead of with a closed fist, I think you will more easily navigate these different moments throughout your transformation.
Absolutely. Ah, that's so beautiful. And having the discernment too, to recognize what you're seeing. Sometimes people will say, I'm there for you, everything's fine. But then the actions aren't there, and having discernment to know the difference as well. But I love what
Totally.
you said about keeping an open mind and remembering that people are not ours to keep. Like that's such a healthy outlook on the realities of relationships and really anything that we do.
Anything. Yeah.
It's
Jobs,
right.
because you can have that same kind of closed fist mentality with your identity within your career, right? And as soon as you learn to just release that and like your value isn't rooted in your title, your value isn't rooted in where you work or what you do for work, unless you're working for yourself, you can have your value rooted in your entrepreneurial endeavor. But if it's anything working for somebody else, let's be clear. You need to reframe your thinking because
Right.
you're at the mercy of how someone else values you actually in that environment. And so you just can't let that be how you value, you can't let that be the way you value yourself.
I'd love to hear just a little bit about if you had to summarize the hidden cost of
Mm.
your experience, what would you say that those costs were? I know we talked about the cost of self abandonment, not
Yeah.
having your needs met in so many
Yeah.
ways, community. What are some other things if you had to summarize?
Yeah, I think it's been like, and I think I posted something about the different taxes that you pay with the hidden cost. And it's the erasure tax for me. Like I erased my
Mm,
needs and I just did not, I stopped considering myself. I really did. And I don't even know how else to describe it other than in that way. Like literally in relationships, in environments, in spaces, I just immediately assessed my landscape for what are the needs of everyone around me. And I think becoming a mom, that probably
mm,
exacerbated the situation
yeah,
because at that point, you have people that are dependent upon you and have no other option. So you get so used to that frame of mind where you're just like, what does everybody else need? Do I have everything everyone else needs? And you really stop like understanding who you are and what your own needs are. And I think that is probably the biggest, like, cost for me. That has been the biggest cost for me, and it's been really fulfilling to get back to a place in my life where I am now getting to know myself again. I'm now on the very regular asking myself, "Do I wanna do these things? Do I feel like this is the direction I wanna go or that direction? Or do I wanna say yes or do I wanna say no?" I am so much more comfortable, and those questions are becoming a part of my daily thinking, whereas 2, 3, 4 years ago, I probably had no idea that I was operating in that way.
yeah,
I would say maybe 6 years ago.
yeah.
I had an
Well,
idea for a while, but I didn't address it for a long time.
it takes time. It's so many levels. I'm sure there's a chart or a framework somewhere that a therapist or someone has
Yeah,
created about the stages of awareness and the process
for
you have to
sure.
go to. Because I know for sure I went through a process where analyzed and I understood what was happening, but I didn't
Mhm.
embody it.
For
So it was
sure.
like, okay, yeah, I can see this, and this is a problem, and here's the solution. And
Right.
okay, like very logical. And the
Yeah.
type A portion
Abs
of me
Same
of,
here.
okay, I see the problem. Here's how to fix it. We're going to fix it. And now it's fixed.
Yes.
It's
And it you
not
didn't
fixed.
think you were gonna have to perform, like, surgery on yourself. You're like, "Oh,
Right.
yeah, I can just solution for this and figure everything out and check all these boxes."
Yep. I
And
read the
then you're
book.
like, "Oh,
Mhm.
just kidding. Can't do it that easily." And yeah, it's really tough. It's hard, but yes, I probably went through a very similar process.
Yes, definitely difficult, but so worth it.
Oh,
So I would say, in summary, when you're betting on yourself and you really have to choose yourself fully and
yeah,
wholly, and that means looking at all parts of yourself. And for
right.
everyone like us that recovering people pleasers and recovering perfectionists,
Yes.
I would say that it really forces you, if you really want to choose yourself, you have to look at what they call the shadow too, the parts of
Mhm.
yourself that are not perfect and
Yep.
that maybe don't get you the quote unquote result that you want. But in the end, it's again, it's all an illusion because doing the hard things and seeing the shadow parts of yourself and not only loving the acceptable, perfect, quote unquote, perfect doesn't really exist, parts of yourself gets you closer to that alignment. It gets you closer to what you really want. And I think that's something that we don't realize because of how we've been conditioned in society and culture to abandon those pieces and only look at the pretty shiny parts, right? But you really need all parts of yourself to step into the highest version of who you really are and to feel that fulfillment and that joy. It's such a relief when you start to acknowledge, you know what, hey, this is something I have to work on. There's power in that. It's reclaiming your power instead of giving it out to other people. So, what's one thing, Lauren, that you would like to leave our listeners with? A skill, it could be a mantra or a habit that really is something that you revisit when you feel yourself having experiences that remind you of your old self. How do you stay the course? What's something that you revisit?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So, first off, one thing that I do and I've done for a very long time is journal. I always laugh because I think to myself, oh my gosh, when I die, all these journals will have so many things
I'm
in.
putting mine in a lockbox
I know,
and
and
I'm
I think
throwing
to
away the key.
myself, Lord help us, we cannot if anybody finds all these journals, I think about my kids. But anyhow, I journal, and I like journaling because what it does is it archives, like, where you were in certain points in time, and you can actually see your progress, and you can see the progress in your thought processes. So I always encourage people to journal, if they don't daily journal, at least do something to get your thoughts out, get your experiences out, because if you don't document them, what often happens is you don't see patterns and you don't have a from to even encourage yourself and know,
Mm.
hey, I made it through this difficult moment. Sometimes I go back and just flip to any random page of whatever journal I have near me and I'm like, wow, like I am so different from that person. And it's really encouraging and it's quite fulfilling to know that all the hard work and the tears and the prayers have really not gone in vain. So I really am grateful for that practice. I would encourage anybody to adopt such a practice if they don't have one already. And then I always think to myself, like, this version of me deserves to be seen. I spent so many
Mm.
years trying to contort myself or be a chameleon in environments just to be accepted. And I am showing up in my life in a way that's unapologetic now. And I'm really grateful for this moment and that I've gotten to this place. And I always just say to myself, this version of me deserves to be seen. I say that.
Yeah.
I would encourage everybody to have some sort of mantra, something that they repeat, because it's not just about seeing me physically, right? It's about showing up for me.
Mm.
It's about allowing my voice to be heard. It's about making decisions that feel good for me. So those are the types of things I mean by I'm saying this version of me deserves to be seen. Like I'm not hiding myself anymore. And
Beautiful.
so I think that's the biggest thing. I always say at the end of my podcast episodes two things. The biggest risk is staying the same. And you can't change the past, but you can absolutely decide on the future. So upgrade accordingly. Those are things that I say because I truly mean that. You are taking the biggest risk of your life and it's the biggest mistake if you decide to stay the same. If you decide that you don't ever want to change, don't ever want to transform, don't ever want to get better. And the sad part is you'll never see the version of the life that you could have lived if you would have just done that work. It's hard, but it's really worth it. And so I just always want to encourage people to consider that because you're taking a risk either way.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. Oh, I love it. I have goosebumps. That's always my
You're
sign of
welcome.
alignment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
So tell
Good.
the people how they can have more of your medicine. Where are you?
Yeah.
Where do you live on the internet?
Yeah, so almost I think everything is the upgrade with L. So you can find my YouTube channel. All of my podcasts stream live weekly. Every Tuesday, we release a new episode. And so you can find them wherever podcasts are streamed. Instagram, The Upgrade with L. My website is theupgradewithL.com. I just recently decided two things. I just launched my first digital product, which is a 7-day guided reset. It's a voice, audio and journal like prompt experience that I put together because I had so many people reaching out to me about going through this transformation and just not knowing where to start. So I did
Right.
that because I practice journaling. Like I thought, okay, if anybody else is like me, or if they've even never gotten into journaling, like this is a guided reset for them. So I launched that. And then the second thing is I am going to launch one-on-ones because I've again, had people continue to say, I just want to talk through this. I want to talk through that. And I can appreciate that. And in fact, I have engaged in some of these conversations, but like anybody, I don't have all the time in the world or it's not unlimited. So I need to create
Right.
a schedule and offer that in a way that people can access if they want. So I am getting ready to launch that. One on ones with me are coming up.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, Lauren. This has been such a beautiful and refreshing conversation. And I know that actually, I don't have to hope, I know that it's going to be helpful for so many people listening. We are in such a major time of transformation, as you
Yeah.
said, and it's going to continue. I think we're seeing sprinkles of the future of what's happening with our collective experience as humans. There's so
Yeah.
much change happening around us where
Mhm.
you almost feel like you don't have a choice but to shift and change because there's so
For
much
sure.
external discomfort. The only peace you'll really have is within. And so your mind, your body, and your spirit that's your home, that's your temple, that's the place where you have to feel the safest when the world around you is so unpredictable. So we're being forced to go within. And I say forced because no one really wakes up one day and be like, you know what? I just want to change all these things.
Yeah.
It's our
No,
experiences that push us to
for
say, I
sure.
don't want to feel this anymore.
Yeah.
So thank you for being a part of the conversation here. For everyone that's watching live, a replay will be available here on Substack. We'll also be streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You'll be able to find clips and all the things on both of our platforms and Lauren's Substack as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see
Thank
you
you.
on the
All
next live. Thank you.
right.